Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carry on. Right, face. Order. Guns. Adjust. Guns. Forward. March. Left. 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 Right. Left. 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 Right. Left. 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 Right. Left. 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 Right. Left.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. That was a combination of our Arlington, Martin Luther King, Ramona, and Pauley high schools that joined ROTC Color Guard. So we thank them. I'm going to call the meeting back to order, and I would like Skylene, is she still here? Did she? There you are, Skylene. Good. Mr. Lee wants to talk about you a little bit, so come on back up.
Hi, Skylene. Thanks for leading us in the pledge. Skylene is a student who will represent Harrison Elementary. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't read that part. Skylene is a 6th grade student at Harrison Elementary. She has attended since her kindergarten year. Skylene would be considered a Harrison legacy, as her mother attended and promoted from 6th grade as well. Skylene is an outstanding and well-rounded student. She has consistently earned honor roll throughout her school years. Skylene is an avid reader. For both her 5th and 6th grade years, she has reached over 1 million words as monitored by the Accelerated Reader Program. Skylene has participated in our music program and has been a member of both beginning and advanced bands during her 5th and 6th grade years. Harrison Elementary is very proud of Skylene, as is the board, and commends her for her hard work and dedication she has displayed to become such an outstanding student. Congratulations. You've done a great job. Did you have some guests with you that you brought along?
Yes,
Want to introduce them?
I brought the principal, Mrs. Oliver, and my family, my dad, Jeremy, my mom, Gina, my twin sisters, Raylyn and Riley, my sister, Rue, Charisma, and my brother, Halen, my sister, Zoe, and my brother, Wesley.
Wow, quite the crowd. That's awesome. We have this certificate for you.
Thank you, Skylene, and thank you, Skylene's family, for coming and supporting her. It's so nice to see you all taking up a whole row. That's very cool. I would like to invite you to stay if you'd like, but you're also welcome to go home. We're just going to get down to board business, so we appreciate you coming tonight, and thank you for making RUSD proud.
And full.
And full, yeah. Keeping us in business, yeah. Just while they're leaving, I didn't get a chance to say we just returned from closed session and we had no action taken. And we're back now in open session. And right now I think we have our recognition of our National History Day, California team and our alternates. And as usual, I believe RUSD represented very well in the state and going on nationally. So I will let Dr. Ermert talk to us about that.
Thank you, Ms. Lock-Dawson, Mr. Fine, members of the board. Yes, as you can see, we continue to increase our wonderful participation in History Day. Each year it seems to be a little bit more of a celebration with more people, more students. This year I know at least 2 of our outstanding teachers, probably more, have children that have done very well in History Day, and that's quite a nice thing to celebrate. But as I've said before, there could be no better. We are so fortunate to have Mrs. Leibold, Barb Leibold, is our History Day coordinator, and she's served in this capacity for quite some time, and she's very instrumental to our success and as well as our teachers and students' success. So, Barb?
If I could have all of the History Day students who are present, please just line up over on my left side over here. And if I could please have our wonderful History Day teachers and site coordinators line up over on my right, over on this side. And Mrs. Locke Dawson and Mr. Fine, would you like to help distribute certificates? Congratulations. I'll do comments first in that. Mrs. Locke Dawson, Mr. Fine, members of the board, this evening we celebrate the achievement of RUSD's 2014 National History Day California team. The students will be recognizing this evening served as either alternates to or competed at the state competition April 25th to the 27th at the Riverside Convention Center. History Day students, we've already got you down. Before we recognize the academic achievement of these outstanding students, I would first like to recognize our History Day teachers and, oh, you guys can come a little closer. It looks like a mugshot lineup. Okay, this is good, Mr. Rumsey, thank you. I want to recognize our outstanding History Day teachers and their principals. And principals, if you are in the audience, if you could please stand so we can thank you for your support of this most worthwhile competition. And teachers, please know that, oh, I'll call their names. Oh, they can stand anyway, okay. Thank you. Teachers, please know that I extend our sincerest gratitude during this week of Teacher Appreciation for the countless hours that you have devoted to working with this incredible group of students. Your devotion to their academic achievement is most evident. From Emerson Elementary School, Mrs. Hopper with Principal Russ Bouton. From Rivera Elementary School, if you're here, you can just sort of wave your hand. Mrs. Christy Hernandez with Principal Wilson Cuellar. From Earhart Middle School, Mr. Byer, Mrs. Mascari, and Mr. Otis with Principal Sean Curtin. From Frank Augustus Miller Middle School, Mrs. Sherry Saucedo with Principal Janelle Woodward. From Sierra Middle School, Mr. Rumsey and Mrs. Gowell with Principal Steve Ibarra. From University Heights Middle School, Mr. Kiesling, Ms. Nyaga, Ms. Denniston, and Principal Coleman Kells. From King High School, Mr. Hawking, Principal Daryl Hansen. From North High School, Mr. Scott Zyber, Principal Dr. Len Sheffield. From Poly High School, Mr. Gull, Mr. Zackett with Principal Dr. Mike Rowe. And from Ramona High School, Mrs. Kraus, Mr. Walter, Principal Dr. Jamie Angulo. As we know, History Day becomes a family activity. Without the support of parents and guardians, these students would not be up here awaiting recognition. History Day embodies everything we know about the Common Core state standards for literacy in history, social science, and depth of knowledge level 4, investigating or researching over, keyword here, an extended period of time. And that extended time involves students' families. The majority of students here this evening began work on their entries this past summer and continued to refine those entries based on further research up until the day of the state competition. As one mother said to me, when my son started his research this past July, I had no idea that this person he was researching would end up as almost a member of our family. So parents, guardians, and family members who are in our audience tonight, could you please stand so we can thank you for your support over these past months. And with that, students, when I call your name, I want you to come up here and receive congratulations, please, from our interim superintendent, Mr. Mike Frime, and from the president of our Board of Education, Mrs. Locke Dawson. After you have received your congratulations, please proceed right by me, and you may stand by your teacher over on this side. Okay? And if you don't hear me call your name right away, I have you all in specific categories. If you won a special award, you'll be called with that category. So with that, let's start with our grade 4-5 individual display. Our alternate to National History Day, California, Julian Taylor, Emerson Elementary School. From Earhart Middle School, alternate, junior individual website, Sakif Saeed. Our RUSD National History Day California team participants from Sierra Middle School, Haley Hernandez. For their junior group documentary, from Earhart Middle School, Sydney Irwin and Anna Lee. In the category of senior historical paper from Poly High School, Tina Velez. From King High School, Taylor Peterson. And also from King High School, Chris Hooks. For senior group documentary entitled Korematsu v. United States from King High School, Christian Alizada, Adriana Fiducia, and Neil Karodi. In the category of senior individual exhibit, from Martin Luther King High School, Caitlin O., Andersonville Prison, Rights and Responsibilities for Captured Union Soldiers. From Ramona High School, for his exhibit entitled Silent Spring, Kieran Silva. And from King High School, for her exhibit entitled Silent Spring, The Rights and Responsibilities, Justine Petty. For their senior group exhibit entitled The Creation of Hope, The Formation of the United Farm Workers Union from North High School, Brian Cardenas, Jesse Cardenas, and Graciela Pacheco. For his senior individual performance entitled The Rights and Responsibilities of the First Crusade from Ramona High School, Isaiah Morrow. And for their senior group website from King High School entitled The Pentagon Papers, The Responsibility to Bring Light to Our Rights, Alexis Fayakeapong, Sir Chanel Versosa. The following students qualified for the intense finals round of competition that took place the evening of Friday, April 25th and Saturday, April 26th. In the category of Junior Historical Paper finalist from Earhart Middle School, Brian Kim, The Spanish-American War, America's Rights and Responsibilities as a World Power. Senior group exhibit finalists from North High School, When the War Came Home, The Kent State Massacre, Alexandra Itkus and Allison Baird. For their senior individual website from Martin Luther King High School entitled The Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, Time of Violated Rights and Unfulfilled Responsibilities, Hannah Chang. And also a finalist from Martin Luther King Junior High School for her work, Massacre on the Home Front, Rights and Responsibilities of Kent State, Krista Zwart. The students I'll announce next received special recognition, special awards at the State History Day competition. Our first one, and she's also receiving her medal from us this evening. This one these right here. As she didn't have a chance to pick that medal up that day. From Rivera Elementary School for her two-dimensional display, Eliza Tibbetts, Liberty, Equality, and Oranges, Halen Henstridge. Yet Halen was not able to attend awards and get her medal, so we have brought it to her. Best in County from Martin Luther King Jr. High School, Hannah Larson and Zachary Larson for their documentary, The Educational Rights of Students with Disabilities, The Impact of Public Law 9414. The Japanese American History Award, these students were also finalists at the State History Day competition. From Ramona High School for their work World War II, the Japanese American Injustice, Christopher Bell, Sajim Brown, and Brian Caradad. And this student won two. She has one certificate, but she was recognized twice. Emily, I don't think, had a chance to sit down that morning when we had awards. Emily Hughes, Poly High School, for her work Memories of Manzanar and Beyond, Perspectives on Rights and Responsibilities in Japanese Internment Camps, won both the California Council for the Promotion of History Award and the California Historic Places Award. We now recognize our National History Day alternates. These students, should the state champion in their category be unable to attend the national finals June 15th to 19th at the University of Maryland College Park campus, will be called up in their place. First, for senior group documentary, National History Day alternates from Martin Luther King Jr. High School, their work entitled We Are Men Not Beasts, Neglect of Rights and Responsibilities at Attica Leads to National Prison Reform, Joel Frank and Stephanie Rillian. For his senior individual website from John W. North High School entitled Opium War, Right to Trade and the Responsibility of a Nation, Jerry Wan. From John W. North High School for their senior group website entitled The Great Chinese Famine, Forgotten Rights and Abandoned Responsibilities, Quinn Dohan, Sophia Goebel, and Carolyn Perez. And for her grades 4-5 two-dimensional display from Rivera Elementary School, her work entitled The Chinese Exclusion Act 1882, New Chinese Immigration Rights and Responsibilities, Allison Bouchon. And now I'd like to introduce the 5 students that will be representing 4 entries at National History Day at the University of Maryland, June 15th to 19th. First of all, and this is the first time that an entry has moved forward from this school, from Frank Augustus Miller Middle School, for her junior individual documentary entitled Operation Pied Piper, A Government Right or Irresponsible Action, Haley Hawking. From Earhart Middle School, certainly a site that is of returning History Day veterans. Mr. Byer, I'm not sure how many times you've been back there, but I know you know the college 5 times. This will be 6. This will be the 5th time. That's a lot, okay? For his junior individual website entitled The Rights and Responsibilities of Chemical Warfare and Its Impact Today, Nicholas Beam. First time that this school will also be represented at National History Day Finals, from University Heights Middle School for their website entitled I Am an American, Koharu Abe and Hannah Terrio. And finally, I held her for last because this student is going to National History Day representing RUSD for the third consecutive year in a row. We have had students go twice in a row. We have never had 3 times, Rachel. Okay, and I'm actually going to check with the National History Day staff to see how many 3-time-in-a-row students they have had over their 25-plus years of existence. For her senior individual documentary entitled Waters in the Wilderness, The Right to Utilize, the Responsibility to Protect, last year's junior individual documentary national champion this year will be participating as a senior individual documentary participant from Martin Luther King Junior High School, their first time taking part in National History Day, Rachel Preby. With that said, I'd like to thank the Riverside Convention and Visitors Bureau along with the Downtown Riverside Partnership for their support of holding National History Day California right here in town. I also want to thank the principals of our champion sites for their assistance in ensuring that these students' travel and lodging is provided for, and for their assistance in supporting my efforts to ensure that those teachers are with them on this journey. Additionally, as History Day goes far beyond just the competition itself, Mr. Byer, Rachel Preby, and I will be presenting an overview of how RUSD utilizes the incredible resources available through the National Archives in preparation of History Day entries at this weekend's National Archives Conference in Palm Springs. And, not done yet, okay, on June 1st, Rivera 5th grader Halen Henstridge, Halen, where are you? Raise your hand. There she is, okay? Will be presenting her research on Eliza Tibbetts, Liberty, Equality, and Oranges to the Riverside Historical Society at their meeting. So with that, are there any questions that we can answer for you?
Side. Stand up there. Scoot on over. You guys can stand back here. Scoot over. Squeeze in. The more people can go on this side. There we go. Come on over here, guys. Come over here.
I have a question for Mrs. Lidle. I was just wondering, out of all of the, at the weekend conference, that was Riverside County or that was California?
That was California. We had 1,291 students from throughout the state.
And out of all of those, does Riverside RUSD, do we have not one of the largest groups presented?
We have one of the largest groups represented in winning.
Yay.
Yay. Yes.
Very good. Very
Yes.
good. Congratulations.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Leibold. That's awesome. And let's give one more round of applause for these kids, their parents, and teachers. All right, while the room is clearing out here and all our talent is leaving, just kidding. We have much talent left behind. I'm going to ask Ms. Hill to come up, please. Come forward for our next agenda item on school design teams. This is our personalized learning initiative that we have going on,
It
and
is
you're
our
going to
personalized
discuss.
learning initiative, and it's a different kind of talent. As our students who are leaving are focusing on our past, our personalized learning initiative is focusing on our future. So as you said, Mrs. Lock-Dawson, personalized learning is a district-wide initiative. And part of this presentation will also recognize some teams that have taken our design criteria for personalized learning and made a plan designed specifically for their school, their talent, their constituency.
Can you remind us again, Ms. Hill, about how the design teams came to be and why we selected them and what it's related to the Gates grant and where we are in the process for those that may not know?
Right.
Thank
At
you.
this particular moment is not necessarily related to the Gates grant. We talked to the instruction subcommittee about this. Gates was taking a considerable amount of time to get their process together and make their announcements and decisions and announcements. And with summer coming and schools having to be ready to pilot in the fall, we got permission to go ahead and make some team selections ahead of their finalizing their process and announcement. So they'll be catching up with us. Thank you. The personalized learning vision aligns well with the board mission, vision, and goals, particularly goals 1 through 4. You'll see in a slide later on where our program outcomes are exactly the outcomes from goals 1 through 3. And then we can also work on goal number 4. In the district-wide planning process, we decided on 5 design criteria. So any teams that move forward and the district-wide initiative will have these 5 components. I'll start with the learner profile. So one element we designed was to have a profile of our learners that is in part implied, meaning when we have systems that capture student performance data from lessons that they do. One current example that we have now is our Envision Math Pearson SuccessNet. You can look on that dashboard and see what progress students are making. So that's an implied profile. The student is not directly giving us information. A portion of our profile will also be based on student, parent, and teacher information about the student's talents and interests. Particularly with our advisory board, when we were going through the district design process, we wanted to have an aspirational component, meaning deliberately not limiting children to what their demonstrated skills might indicate that they would be or do. Because as we know, you're not just your reading score. Whereas some learner profiles that we had seen designed really just kind of took your reading score and made a slot for you. That learner profile should inform a personalized learning plan for each student so that they have some grade level standards based instruction, and then they also have some individualized support based on whichever support they need. If it's remedial support at their independent level, then it would be that, or if it's accelerated or enriched support at their independent level, it would be that. Students would move through those plans based on individual mastery, which means that we'll have to devise a system of curriculum and assessments that allows some individualization and student pace and path through the curriculum, which of course would require more flexible environments than we have now, because it wouldn't be a block of students moving through a curriculum with a whole, every day, a whole group lesson with a small group lesson. And then lastly, unique to our district, we added an element that our learners would be socially engaged contributors, meaning they bring something to the situation also. It's not just you're in a personalized learning program and something's operating on you. You collaborate with your classmates and others and bring some things to the mix. We invited our sites after we had the design criteria laid out. We invited our sites to take that criteria and apply it to their unique situations, personalized in a way. And we had 22 sites that took time to get together, collaborate, and design a plan. So I'd like to take a minute to recognize all 22 of those schools. So if you and your team submitted a plan, would you please stand? There's a lot of them. It was evident in reviewing those 22 applications that people tailored plans to their students and to their own talents and the interests of their students. Of those 22, we conducted an application review, and 13 of those sites were invited to host a site visit and to generate a video commercial about their plan. So I want to thank Gloria Cowder, Tracy Arner, Wes Creasel, Ron Weston, and his principal, Dennis Dietz, for really looking at all 22, but visiting the 13 sites, going through those commercials. Our partners also at Guru Learning accompanied us on some of the visits, and we're amazed by what happens in school, in our schools. And they also helped us review the video commercials from an outsider's perspective. Did it transmit a message about personalized learning that would entice them to enroll their students in that program? So of those 13 schools that got a visit, 5 have been asked to fully pilot some version of the plan they submitted. So over time already, the plans have changed some, and they're free to do that because that's what a pilot is all about. So if you are one of the 5 principals or staff, would you please stand? And principals, if you can get out of your place, would you mind joining me here in case there are questions about your plan? So our 5 schools are Hawthorne, Liberty, Central, Gage, and Sierra. Thank you. Come on. So these teachers and principals, and amongst the other 13 and 22 also, they came early, stayed late, made plans, changed plans, worried, wheedled, and have a lot of work ahead of them. And none of us have any of it figured out. We have an agreement to work together to figure it out. So as much as we know is what you see there on the screen. They'll be working from now through the summer and be ready to pilot when school starts on day 1. Pilot what is unique to their plan, which is why they are here, if you have questions about those. Through that process, once Gates joins us, that there would be a competition to do a launch the following fall. So they're having proof of concept this year with their pilot. And if we get the kinks worked out, we're able to implement those 5 elements in the way that suits their plan, then they would compete for a launch in fall 2015, which still wouldn't be whole school. The idea is to scale up to full school over 3 to 5 years. And I'm trying to encourage them to have a 3-year point of view, because no one in the world has it all figured out, so we're still going to have to work a lot of kinks out. Then my last slide here, in the plan that we laid out so far, and then these principals, their teams, and my team will be meeting over the next couple of weeks. This is what we have laid out, but we're free to change our plan also to suit the schools. We, of course, have to get the 5 elements ready. We're going to be talking together often. We do want to host a second Personalized Learning Summit. In all of the 13 schools that we visited, that summit was really a catalytic event for enthusiasm and thinking, and for people really imagining how school might be different. We also, it said we want to host a School Design Team Institute, originally planned for around October. I think we probably need to do it sooner so that they can have a chance to get together. And we're inviting the other schools to, whenever possible, join these teams in the activities, because there's no reason not to. We can all learn from what we're doing together. We also want to make sure we visit some pioneers who are out there who have best practices and lesson learned, and that we have some engagement events for various stakeholders. So with this, our desired outcomes are the ones you recognize. They're from board goals. Reading by 3rd grade, our college and career readiness indicators, so completion of algebra, passing the EAP, SAT and ACT tests, and graduation. And then college success, meaning persistence rates.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. We have a couple questions for you from the board. Mrs. Allaby?
I was wondering if each of the principals could give a little elevator speech about what was unique. Oh, good. Just a short little thumbnail about what you're doing at your school and what makes it unique. Go ahead, you can use the mic.
I had to be on this end of the line. I'm principal at Hawthorne. My awesome team is back. So at Hawthorne several years ago, there emerged a teacher-initiated plan to integrate art and technology across the curriculum, and it's called Art Tech. This came from teachers. It has been expanded by teachers. Folks have written grants and really worked together to expand it school-wide. So it began with a cadre of people, a vertical team, and then spread very organically and comfortably now to be whole school. This was a nice next step for us. We have, part of what makes us special is just the infrastructure that we have, the technology, the equipment that's in classrooms, and we've been devoting a lot of time and money the last few years to purchasing devices for students, and then also to learning how to teach using those materials, and also allowing our students to explore using those materials. So our program will be based on that same model. We're going to do some experimenting and piloting and hope to develop some answers to what works and let that expand. And a key component of our plan will be what we call a passion project, which will be a chance for students to really in-depth explore over time something that they're passionate about, and to keep a digital portfolio of that.
Very good.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. And if you come on up, if you could state your name and what school you're from for those that may not recognize you.
Sure. I'm Lynn McCown from Central Middle School. I'm very excited to be up here and for our school to be chosen as one of the pilot programs. I have an amazing group of educators at Central. We were the beta pilot for school to home of one-to-one devices, and we're very proud that it's our 5th year. And we have been through a lot of challenges and faced a lot of problem solving, critical thinking to make it all work with our students, and we're very proud that we do that now. So when this option came up, we jumped into it, and my team of 12 different people kind of begged to be on the team. And I just got to sit back and let them go forward with what their ideas were. Our idea is a little bit different in that my team is very, very adamant about they want it to be school-wide, but in a different way right from the very beginning. So their thought is, instead of having a 100-student cohort, they wanted to do it school-wide during one period after lunch. And the idea is to find out what the passions, interests, learning ideas of our students are, explore all of those, get a few of them down, and our teachers. Then to survey and explore what their passions, their learning areas are that they want to explore and maybe that they're not experts in yet. And the idea is to have personalized learning for our staff as well as our students. And then our counseling department works really hard to match that up each quarter. And for that time period of that day, they do all the different kinds of technological applications that we've been learning with Guru and Google and all those websites like Animoto and presentations and Prezi. And they let the kids do a electronic portfolio of, okay, for instance, you're really interested in the solar system or planetary investigation, and there's a science teacher who really wants to take off with that. So we align a whole group of students with that teacher for a quarter, and then they go where no one's gone before, hopefully, and they pick and choose what they're going to go after, how they're going to go after it, how they're going to measure that they learned what they wanted to learn, with the teacher as a facilitator and learning right along with them. And we're very, very excited about this because it pairs teachers' interest with students, which adds extra connections. It fits the board goals of School Plus 2, connecting kids to what their interests are. And for one period a day, they get to go wherever they want with a teacher for a quarter. And that can be in the arts, because we're looking towards being an arts and innovation campus. And so if it's exploring the higher genres of dance or art or music, we want to let the students go there. We have a teacher who's an outdoorsman, and he's got some great ideas with videos and explorations of students who've never been outdoors, how they could experience, even if it's setting up a tent in the back of Central, for them to explore how to do that overnight. Some of these kids have never had those experiences. So we're very excited and we're hopeful about it, and of course we'll hit our challenges. But we're very honored and we're very excited, and we welcome you out anytime as we go through this process. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, I'm Dr. Kaisha Holmes. I'm principal of Gage Middle School. The way that we've started the implementation of the personalized learning design, shortly following the summit hosted by the district, several of my team members went back to school, shared a lot of the information with students, and we actually had about 60 students on campus who said, this is what we need, this is what we've been looking for. And so we actually piloted, we have zero period, and so we piloted a class of 30 kids during zero period who were to break off into different periods with that same teacher during the day to be leaders in the classroom and to encourage dialogue amongst other students on campus about the opportunities that were available to them through the personalized learning form. And so following that, I think I had probably hundreds of kids coming to meet with me in my office asking for this to be expanded to their other classes. Specifically, their interest was in having a diversity in the way that they communicated how they were learning. And so I had students come to me and say, you know what, I've always struggled with ADHD, never been interested in school, and to have this kind of classroom available to me on campus has provided what I've needed to be motivated and to stick with this. And so to have kids coming with that kind of information, sharing that with the staff, it kind of leveraged a lot of what we felt like needed to happen anyway, but to have kids having that conversation with us really set the tone of what needed to take place here. And so in the class that we're currently piloting, our students were reading The Giver, and one of the central themes of the book was freedom and personal responsibility and the sacrifices that often occur to for everyone to have freedom. And so they engaged the community. They went to the plaza and they interviewed different community members, and they did that kind of thing. They brought that information and data back to the classroom, shared it with their peers, with the teacher, and they all individually crafted different projects and ideas based on that. And so their learning wasn't just on what they saw on TED Talks or what they researched on the internet, but they had live information by way of engaging the community, and that was something that they really felt enriched their experience. And so as they move forward and having their learning assessed, some students were cheerleaders or dancers, and they used those arts and they used those skills to communicate how that particular standard or that point was driven forward. And this is the approach that we've taken at Gage, and this is kind of the platform that we want to continue to move forward in to give our kids those opportunities. And so aside from what's happening instructionally, we've added to our campus smart TVs for our teachers to use to engage students with their Chromebooks, because we will be one-to-one next year, and just providing different avenues whereby students can communicate how they're learning. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you, Dr. Holmes. Interesting.
Hi, good evening, Mrs. Locke Dodson, Mr. Fine, members of the board. I'm Esther Garcia, principal of Liberty Elementary School, and my team is here. And we are very, very excited to have been selected for this journey. Our journey started with the Common Core implementation. Once we realized that the Common Core was going to have a strong requirement of technology base, we started back in September, October with discussions as to how are we going to get the kids ready for typing skills and other technology-based skills that they need to learn. And so we made a commitment. We made a commitment that we were going to implement in our daily schedule. My most wonderful go-getter teachers that are behind me found 15, 20 minutes a day, every single day, to teach our kids typing skills, keyboarding skills, and other like dragging and highlighting and changing fonts, and just basic skills that kids need to learn. And so when the opportunity came with the summit, we did have our Teacher of the Year. So she was invited to come with me, and we were both very, very excited. So we took the message back when the opportunity for all teachers to come and participate in the Guru Personalized Learning conference training. I did have a large number of teachers who came, and they were very excited. So we came back and we committed. We committed not only to making sure that our kids were going to be prepared with the basic technology skills. First grade, we are starting the typing, keyboarding skills in first grade through sixth grade, so that they can be prepared for middle school and definitely be prepared for high school. That's our goal, is to make sure that our kids will come with that knowledge in middle school and to high school. And from there, we took on Google Documents and Haiku and most definitely Guru. So I have actually 2 Guru teachers here. They are using that program consistently and very well. So my teachers are really excited, but most of all, my kids are very excited. They're actually asking my teachers to present lessons in Guru so that they can access them anytime during the day, even on weekends. So thank you to Renee Hill and her team for selecting Liberty, because I know that we are ready for this challenge.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia.
Superintendent Fine, President Locke Dawson, members of the board. I'm Stephen Ybarra, principal at Sierra Middle School. When I first heard about the Bill and Melinda Gates Planning Foundation grant back in November, I knew it wasn't a matter of if, but what our plan would be. We have several innovative teachers on campus who I knew were just going to run with this. So as we started to plan, 2 things that stood out for us was perseverance and community. I believe in our community at Sierra, and I talk a lot about our community while on campus. And I also talk about perseverance in terms of our students. And so our approach is, in some ways, a pathway, and that it's going to be called the Health and Human Services Pathway. And we looked at one of the design elements, the socially engaged contributors, and going back to community, I wanted to involve our entire community. So students participating in our design would be also spending time in our severely handicapped classroom. We also have some community agencies. I've reached out to the Goski Center. So these students would be participating in a purpose-driven education centered around the Health and Human Services pathway and spending time in those severely handicapped classrooms. They encounter several different professionals as well, from the teacher to the instructional assistant to the speech pathologist to the occupational therapist. So introducing them to those careers as being a part of this personal learning. And there's also a mentor component, and getting back to that perseverance, where the teachers involved would be working closely with 30 identified students that they would be mentoring. We too have a zero period on our campus, and part of the design is those mentors would spend time with those students during those 30 minutes daily, mentoring them. So that's our initial approach.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Barber.
So as you can see, the plans are varied. I also want to give a shout out to instruction. I've been reading the book Accelerate. I highly recommend it. And it talks about taking the big opportunity and doing something different strategically in a side-by-side network with the regular hierarchical organization. So in instruction, they're reworking the scope and sequence for content, and it's a perfect fit for them. These schools, now they have a fresh new scope and sequence, and they can apply their particular design to that new scope and sequence. So it's the old and new really working together. So Bill's team and Judy's work, Cheryl, Anu, and Brad's teams are working together with us, and they'll work together with these 5, especially even more, to make sure that pilot schools are delivering, Mrs. Cloud, standards-based instruction in just in a high-quality way, maybe different than the traditional methods that other students are having. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Hill. And can I just ask one quick question? Do you, because this is always, of course, my beef, is there a way we're going to know how we're doing? Are we going to be able to assess how the schools are doing other than test scores and that sort of thing? Are you each developing your own individual sort of metrics or ways to assess your, and you don't have to individually answer, just a quick brief, just let me know if you've given thought to that.
Yes. The criteria that we ended up choosing the teams over were team function, support for technology integration, support for student learning outcomes overall, data, so goal selection and outcomes to those goals, and then the design elements that we have there. So my team will be tracking to see whether those were, we thought they were the critical characteristics from things that we've read and seen. So we want to make sure that we track against those characteristics, because if we have another wave, you know, we want to see were those the right things to focus on for teams. And we'll be focusing on the same measures that other schools have, the DIBELS, the district-wide assessments, year-end assessments, and then whenever Gates comes along, they might have an evaluation method of their own.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, the good news is you got selected, and the bad news is you got selected.
Right.
Because,
we talked about that.
Yeah, that, you know, the expectations are going to be high, and we're all going to want to know how you're doing and how it's working. So, but it sounds like you've given some thought to it. So it's great. Thank you very much. It's wonderful. And thank you to the staffs at all those schools. I know that was probably something you guys had to scramble to get together, and really brought out your passions. So thank you. Our next section is, we've got our high school representatives. Thank you for being so patient tonight. I really appreciate it. It's that time of year, you know. So I would like to call Aiden Chavez first from North High School. Good evening, Mr. Chavez.
Good evening, Mrs. Patricia Log-Dawson, Mr. Fine, and members of the board. There is always so much going on at North High School, and I'm so excited to be able to speak on all our wonderful students. Students have excelled not only in academics, but in athletics as well. Our United Student League is also sharing the same success and excelling through achieving the goals that they established at the beginning of the year. In regards to athletics, we have earned 4 different honorable titles in league championships. These different 4 teams include girls cross country, boys basketball, boys tennis, and boys soccer. We are, of course, proud of all their efforts in sports, and because it does take lots of commitment and dedication. Among these 4 sports, we would like to recognize our boys basketball team for being ranked #1 through the high school game time program sponsored by the Press Enterprise. Among our boys basketball team, 2 different members have been selected to join the California's All-State basketball team. Our first team member is Deshaun Taylor, who will be joining the All-State Elite 3rd team and Division I first team. And our second team member who will be joining the All-State basketball team is Dikembe Martin, who has been selected to be a part of the All-State sophomore team. Of course, I cannot stress the importance of how proud we are of not only Deshaun Taylor and Dikembe Martin, but all of our student athletes. In regards to academics, Connor Tom was named our Science Fair State Champion a couple weeks ago. Connor Tom submitted his Science Fair project based on astronomy and physics and was able to move past the district to county and finally to state level, where he was, of course, able to get the first place prize. 4 different North seniors participated in the annual African American Academic Bowl sponsored by the University of California, Riverside a couple of weekends ago. These North seniors studied long hours, being able to capture the different aspects of African American history. And they did face other high school teams through this competition, but at the end of the day, our team was awarded the first place prize. And they also won these really cool computers that will do well as they go off to college. Of course, we are always astonished by what our students can do in and out of class. There's no doubt on what they can accomplish. At this moment, we would also like to recognize our school's newspaper, the North Star. The North Star competed at their national journalism competition in San Diego and were named the 4th place in the Best of Show category. Students would stay long hours after school, making sure their issues were without any flaws, and their efforts earned them such an honorable distinction. Students from yearbook and newspaper were also able to participate in their own individual competitions, and many of them were recognized from awards ranging from honorable mention to superior. Year to year, our publications programs always do well in these competitions, and there was no doubt they would do the same this year. Our Multicultural Council will be sponsoring their annual Unity Week beginning today, May 5th, through this Friday, May 9th. During our Unity Week, the Multicultural Council will feature different lunchtime performances from our different culture organizations. The overall goal, of course, is to promote inclusion not only in our campus, but respect for others. Students anticipate this week all year long, especially because this is the time of the year where they actually get to live and absorb what different cultures are about. MCC does a great job year to year organizing this event, and we are very proud of all their hard work. Both the United Student League and Multicultural Council are partnering in an effort to inaugurate an additional leadership council. So this 3rd leadership council will be a twist on Renaissance, but also will be dedicated to promote student recognition and also plan different activities. This council shows great promise as many students are really interested, and of course it will promote our School Plus 2 program. A leadership interest meeting took place last week, and many students wanted to sign up for not only our 3rd leadership council, but our other leadership councils as well. I'm personally glad that this leadership council is being introduced at North because it will foster the next generation of leaders on our campus. And on a couple of final notes, our theater department at North High School is wrapping up this year's spring musical, which is titled The Mystery of Edwin Drood. I actually had the chance to watch this mystery last Friday, and it was really interesting because it kind of allowed the audience to pick the outcome of the mystery of Edwin Drood. So we kind of decided on who the culprit would be. And our dress code for the 2014-2015 school year has been released to all of our students and parents, and a copy can be available on our school's website. And us, as seniors, we're really excited as we gear on through the end of the year, especially because we're getting ready to celebrate all of our commencement and graduation ceremonies, which will take place on our very own stadium. And again, a special thank you for letting me speak on behalf of all the incredible students at North High School.
Don't go anywhere yet. Mrs. Alavi has a question for you.
Well, not just a question. I just want to congratulations, because the luck of the draw at North Senior Exhibition was that Aiden got to be in my group, and I want to just say that at Senior Exhibition he aced it.
All
you can
right.
just
Thank you. It was a big pleasure seeing Mrs. Alavi there. My face just lit up when I knew she was going to be in my panel. It was so great.
But he did a great job. You can
Thank you
see
so
that
much.
he can get up in front of people and speak. And I think maybe doing this experience also helps too, because you're so used to getting up in front
Yeah,
of a
that
group and
definitely helped
speaking.
out because I know lots of my peers were kind of nervous for that day. But then since I could use like my skills here from the board meetings, then I knew I would be fine.
Good.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you,
did.
thank you
did
so
great.
much.
You did great.
So all that waiting around was worth it.
Exactly, patience building skills.
Mr. Hunt has a comment as well.
Yes,
Aiden, how's the proposed dress code being accepted so far?
For the most part, at the beginning, our students were a little bit hesitant, but as they were able to discuss the new dress code, they were a little bit more accepting. So many of our students will start to consider the kind of clothes they kind of decide to buy during the summer so that they could fit the dress code and not be violated in any way.
So I can still wear a hat, let's say a Dodgers hat, to school. I just can't wear it in the classroom.
Exactly, because then again, it will disturb other peers during class hours.
All right, and I got to pull my pants up. They can't sag.
Yeah, please don't sag. Yeah, that's not very respectable.
All right, well,
It's a problem with him, you know.
Yeah, I kind of feel it. I kind of feel this tension. Yeah.
you get old, things like that happen. So, thank you.
No
I'm
problem,
going to
no
watch that with a lot of anticipation.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Aiden, for all your service to us. We really appreciate it. Oh,
Excuse
Mrs.
me.
Cloud, wait a
Oh,
minute.
yeah.
Sorry.
I had a question kind of along the lines of Mr. Hunt. I was out at North the other day and talked to your principal, and she gave me a copy of the dress code, and I was going to pass it out to the board. So thank you for attaching it. Yes, you did. Well, I'm glad to see there's consequences because, you know, well, we talked about that. And a lot of a rule is superfluous unless it has a consequence. So, yeah, report back. Well, you won't be here next year, but we'll have to ask. And were you one more year? Yeah. But I mean, you won't be able to tell us how it goes. So we'll have to ask next year. Thank you.
Mr. Hunt, do you have a question
I
for
forgot
Aiden?
that. Where are you going next year?
Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
you
left
go.
kind of soon. I'll be going to UC San Diego, so I'll be staying here in SoCal.
All right,
Yeah,
UC
yeah.
San Diego.
UC San Diego,
What campus?
Well, it's UC San Diego, so it's
Oh,
on the
UC
San
San
Diego
Diego,
campus.
right.
Yeah.
Where do
Actually,
you
it's in La Jolla, but it's considered San Diego because that's just a bigger area.
What college, though?
Oh, what college? Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. I'll be going in the Thurgood Marshall College, so that's about creating a student, but also a scholar. Oh, no, I mean a citizen and a scholar. There you go. Sorry, so got those flipped around.
They get that right because they make you get a tattoo. You know?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to get a nice bumper sticker for my car.
There you go. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
That's a great
Thank
achievement.
you, Aiden. Good luck next year. Okay, Bernice, come forward, please. Thank you for waiting so patiently.
Good afternoon, President Locke Dawson, Mr. Fine, and members of the board. My name is Bernice Rodriguez, and I'm happy to be here to speak a little bit about what is going on at Ramona. First, I would like to start off by saying that we recently finished the Smarter Balance testing and CSTs. We would also like to wish all of our students good luck as AP testing begins. Next, I would like to talk about the Hall of Fame induction, which was held in our gym on April 28th. Two of our coaches, Jimmy Devine and Steve Campos, were inducted into the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame is an event where Ramona alumni or individuals that contributed significantly to Ramona athletics are recognized. Other inductees this year included Stephanie Gams, Paul Barton, Dwight Tyler, and Mike Roof. Ramona High School just had a masquerade ball this past weekend on Saturday, May 3rd. The venue was held at the Eagle Glen Golf Club in Corona. We were excited that we sold 434 tickets. Students had a wonderful time and enjoyed the theme of Unmask the Night. We would like to congratulate Jesus Vasquez as he recently took second place in the Emerging Artist Show held at the American Museum of Ceramic Art. This is an exceptional show that is held every 2 years. It is open to all high schools in Southern California, and the show consisted of 74 pieces, 3 of which were from Ramona, and Jesus placed second. We are very excited about our spring musical, Guys and Dolls. It starts May 8th and ends May 10th at 7 o'clock. We are excited for the upcoming renovation and improvements to our auditorium, and we thank the board for making this a priority. We had 127 speaking parents participate in a 9-week program called the PK, which stands for the Parent Institute for Quality Education. Parents met once a week for 9 weeks, and parents learned about things like A through G, financial aid, and a variety of other school-related events to help through the process that their kids are going through. Our parent graduation was held on April 22nd. Ramona has also selected their Citrus Belt Area Outstanding Athletes for 2014. They are Josh Creasy for football and baseball, and Taylor Sandoval for volleyball. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of Ramona High School.
Thank you, Bernice. Are you a senior this year?
Yes, I am.
You are. What are you going to do next year?
I'm going to CBU next year. I'm staying local.
And what do you want to study there?
Psychology. Yes, I want to be a mediator in the family corps.
Wow, okay. I was going to say come back to RUSD because I think we're going to be hiring some psychologists.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you both, and you're welcome to stay or go. We appreciate both of you being here tonight, wading through everything. So moving right along on our agenda, in our come to the portion of our public input for anybody wishing to speak on items that are not on the agenda. And we don't have anybody, so I'm going to move past that. Come to Section D, Interim Superintendent's Announcements. Mr. Fine.
Thank you, Mrs. Lock-Dawson. Just a couple items. First, want to remind everybody with respect to the study session we just had before this board meeting concerning our local control and accountability plan. We have 2 community forums set up for next week, Monday the 12th, 6:30 to 8 at John W. North High School Theater. And the second is Thursday, May 15th at the Sierra Middle School multi-purpose room. And then during all of next week also we'll be collecting comments from our community online as well. And then the final opportunity for our community to engage in that process is basically a month from today on Monday the 2nd of June when the board's scheduled to hold a public hearing. And we have flyers, thousands of these just like we did the first time, that are out both in English and Spanish. Also this week we have the pleasure of being the featured group at Good Morning Riverside on early Thursday morning at the Mission Inn, and we've got a great program planned with a theme of thank you to our business partners and business community that attends Good Morning Riverside and have an opportunity to chat about a number of things. Going on at the exact same time, but a few hundred miles away in Sacramento before the State Board of Ed, we will also be presenting, not sure, I think we've got this worked out, how we're going to do 2 things at once. On 2 ends of the state, but we'll also be presenting at the state board's request on our LCAP process. And then last, want to acknowledge 3 of our students. As I know the board's aware, and for our community, the County Superintendent of Schools recognizes a all-county academic team each year comprised of 10 of the top students from across the county, not just in GPA, but SAT scores, community service, if you will, School Plus 2 with respect to their involvement on campus and so on. And 3 of our students are among those 10. You see pictured here Austin Bora from John W. North High School and Amy Hsu from Martin Luther King High School are 2 of those. Our 3rd student is Liang, and I believe he pronounced his last name Joe, also from John W. North. He's not shown in the picture that I took because that evening of the program he was at Yale on his site visit to Yale. And Daryl, I don't think Amy's decided East Coast or West Coast, Harvard or Stanford, I think, are her 2 choices, right? And so she still has that decision to make, but just a great honor for our USD and for King High School and John W. North High School for the county to recognize our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fine. All right, next up we have one of our district employee group reports from Mr. Rudd, who wants to talk to us about CSEA. Come on down, Mr. Rudd. We haven't seen you in a while.
Good evening, Mrs. Lock-Dawson, Mr. Fine, members of the board. CSEA has been busy this month. We had our chapter public relations officer, Bernie Holt, just went to San Jose this weekend for training, and he won an award for one of his newsletters. We've had 3 chapter officers go to level 3 training for union steward training, and they are first Vice President Carrie Aldis, second Vice President Suzette Williams, and third Vice President David Tovar. Classified School Employees Week is May 18th through the 24th, and on the 17th we're having our CSEA picnic, and that's for our chapter, and you are invited to show and say hi, how you doing? And Gloria Cormier is in charge of that again this year, so it ought to be fun like last year. And CSEA would like to present a certificate to Miss Kimberly Butts. She's an employee at Castleview Elementary School, and her daughter, Renee Lockett. Renee was given the scholarship award from CSEA for past president scholarship, and they sent this.
Nice.
And I will let her mother tell you about it.
Yeah.
Madam President, members of the board, Renee Lockett, my daughter, I have 3, my middle one, has really shown outstanding academic achievement and community involvement. She has been a member of ROTC for the first 2 years. She's played numerous sports throughout the year, volleyball, track, basketball. And she volunteers through the church on Mondays serving the homeless. She is the president of the Youth Advisory Council in Paris, and she is just outstanding. And she has decided to go to UCR this year.
Yay! Thank you.
Majoring in what?
I'm majoring in business, but I'm probably going to change it to nursing and be an obstetrician.
Very
It's a
good.
business.
And that is all.
Nice shirt.
Thank you. This is a fun time of year. All these good things going on. All right. We have come to the portion of our agenda of our consent calendar. These are routine items. Mr. Hunt?
Motion to approve the Section F as presented.
Mrs. Cloud?
Second the motion.
Okay. We have a second and a first. Sorry, Mr. Hunt, Mrs. Cloud. Please vote. Okay, that motion carries. Consent calendar passes. Moving on to our public hearing portion of the agenda, we have 2, and I think Mrs. Mills is going to speak to this. This is regarding our negotiations with CSEA.
Yes, these are public hearing, and so no action is necessary. The first one, the California School Employees Association, Chapter 506, has submitted an initial proposal for the collective bargaining agreement, and they are proposing to negotiate the following sections of the bargaining unit: Article 9, Health and Welfare Benefits, and Article 13, Leaves.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anybody that would like to speak to this item? I haven't received any cards, so I'm assuming not. Okay.
For the second one, I have a little amendment here. A public hearing is the Riverside Unified School District with the California School Employees Association, we are proposing to negotiate the following sections. Article 9, Health and Welfare Benefits, and I'd like to amend that the second article is Article 8, but it is salary classification.
Okay.
Accepted with amendment.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Mills. Okay, moving on to the action item of our calendar, our agenda. Our first item up is recommendations. We had a committee get together and retool our elementary report card to come a little bit more in line. I think this initially came out of communications, did it not, Mrs. Alabi? Or is this a little bit different?
It was instruction.
Okay, this was oh, that's right. It was an instruction. Okay. I was on both committees. I can't remember which it came out, but I remembered it coming out of one of them. All right, so please go ahead. Okay. Give us a report.
Well, good evening, President Locke Dawson, Interim Superintendent Fine, and members of the board. The action item before you is a request from the Elementary Report Card Committee to approve their recommendations to the revisions. As you may be aware, in a standards-based education system, it is important for things like curriculum and instruction, assessment, and also student achievement reporting systems to be all in alignment with each other. You may also be aware that for over a decade, elementary schools in Riverside Unified have used a standards-based report card. With the recent changes in academic content standards that the state has adopted, as well as statewide assessment systems changing, the need was generated to revise the report card, and for that reason, a committee was formed. The committee's charge was to make a recommendation to the board concerning revisions to the elementary report card. We have, I think, maybe a few members in the audience. There were several members of this committee. The committee was represented, had one representative from each school site, one elementary school site on the committee, as well as members of instruction staff and some members of technology services, as they are they do the online component of our report cards. So if they're in the audience, if they could stand just to be recognized, I think there's one or two here. Give them a hand. Great. So our meetings did last throughout the school year. We've met several times, most of those meetings being after school. And a great deal of learning needed to take place at the beginning for these teachers. As you know, we are in a unique situation right now in education where our standards, our curriculum frameworks, and our assessments are all changing at the same time. Nowhere in the recent past have all of these things happened at once, and our teachers on this committee really had to dive deep into these different areas of change to ensure that the elementary report card would align to all these different areas. And if I can brag for a moment, the teachers on this committee did an amazing job. You know, it is quite a special thing when you get our USD teachers in a room and give them a task. They really rise to the challenge. The conversations that took place, the amount of depth they went into looking at these different changes, it's not an easy task, and they did an amazing job. So I'll stop bragging for a moment and move on. The committee early on did establish some goals for the report card. We established that it needed to be aligned to the standards and to our current instructional program, that it should be a good communication tool for various stakeholders, and that it should rely on multiple measures. And by that we mean that it should rely, that a grade should not be just derived from a single assessment or a single assignment, but that it should be the culmination of much work throughout a trimester. And then finally, the report card should give enough detail to communicate with the various stakeholders involved. Throughout their work, the committee, as they were developing the drafts, did engage several different stakeholder groups, brought this back to their sites, engaged some district stakeholder groups, brought that feedback back to the committee, and as the drafts were developed, we took that feedback, incorporated into the drafts where necessary, and then came up with the final draft that you have before you tonight. And if I could, I would just like to walk you through a section of the report card. You do have a binder in front of you. It has the presentation. Also, behind that, it has the revised report cards that the committee is putting forth tonight. And then that final tab is the existing report card, just so you can refer back to that if you'd like to. I do want to point out a few things, and you can join me on any of the revised versions of the report card, because what I'm going to point out is structurally the same in each grade level. The first thing that you'll notice is that the actual structure of the report card is very similar to what we have in our existing schools right now. It was important to the committee that we maintain some similarity to the old report card, that the structure should stay the same, so teachers wouldn't have to learn how to use an entirely new report card, but they would just, what we really wanted to focus on was the content in each of those sections. Another thing that you'll notice on each of the report cards is at the top, the performance level marks are different from our old report card. And this language here is reflecting the way in which the state will report on student achievement at the end of the year with a state test that's starting in the 14-15 school year that we are field testing right now, but will go into effect next year. It was very important, and this committee felt strongly that the language on the report card should match that of the state assessment. They felt that it would be a good way to communicate with parents so that as they receive the report card throughout the year, it would give an indication how their student or their child might perform on that end of the year test, so using that same language. Initially, we did receive some questions about that language, and we asked our members to go back to their various stakeholder groups and engage them and get their feedback. And I can say the majority of the feedback was positive, and most of the stakeholders did see that value in having an alignment between the report card and the state assessment at the end of the year. Another section I'd like to point out to you are the areas of language arts and mathematics. Our teachers spent a great deal of time diving into the standards, diving into the curriculum frameworks put out by the CDE, and really looking to see how they could align the standards to the standards-based report card. They walked a fine line, and it is difficult. They were trying to maintain the integrity of the standards, but at the same time make it parent-friendly. And a lot of conversation went back and forth on the different language that was used. And again, and this is an area where our teachers really rose to the challenge and spent a lot of time trying to develop that language and make it so it's useful for all stakeholders. And then a final portion I'd like to point out to you is just the behaviors that support learning. This is an area that was carried over from the previous report card, or the current report card. Teachers, though, did take some time to really try to refine this section, make it to where it was much more easily communicating those behaviors in a classroom that really support the academic standards that are being learned every single day. So the committee is asking for approval this evening of the drafts that you see in front of you, those draft 11. They're also asking for you to approve the development of some communication tools as we go throughout the summer and then get closer to the school year. We want to be able to engage both teachers and parents and other stakeholders about the changes in the report cards, some of the ideas that have floated around, things like newsletter clippings that schools can just insert into their first newsletter at the beginning of the year, some things they can put on their websites. Also, what would be something that started being developed and it will be crucial is a parent guide to the report card that will include information about how to read the report card or how to maybe decode some of the language that may not be familiar to everybody. So that is my presentation, and again, thank you so much for taking time to listen to this, and I thank you from the committee as well.
Thank you. We have a few questions for you. I'm assuming the support function and the pieces that you're asking for, that'll go through communications and through publications and sort of our normal process.
We'll go through all the proper channels, yes.
Okay. All right, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you. I'm sorry, what's your name?
Steve Dunlap.
Mr. Dunlap, thank you. First, thank you for getting the logo right. That's a good start. On these organizational, it's interesting. So these terms are more cooperative with what the state language is these days?
So at the performance level marks, is that what we're talking about?
Yes, sir. A behavior that supports learning?
No, the behaviors that support learning were actually generated by the teachers. So they're looking at those different behaviors in a classroom that students exhibit that support the academic learning.
Okay, so what's the difference between...
So we're looking at, you're talking about the state, some of the state language?
Well, you mentioned state language, so I was applying that. I mean, for instance, we're now using the term works collaboratively in a group.
Correct.
We used to say works cooperatively in a group.
Right, and I think the language is reflective of some of the documentation that's come out of CDE, but it wasn't necessarily, that section we weren't trying to necessarily align with state language. The areas that we were trying to really align with state language were those performance level marks at the top, and then the areas talking about language arts and mathematics.
What is Display's digital citizenship?
It's a great question. So digital citizenship, as you know, we have technology is just booming right now in our classrooms, and one of the things that we want to be able to teach our students is how to interact with that technology appropriately. So maybe it's online, it's teaching them how to interact with different functions online, how to be a good citizen online. It really brings in pieces about cyberbullying and things like that as well.
Is there a place later on in here that I found my second grade report card the other day, it was interesting, that the teacher can make comments where the young person can improve on his organizational skills if he gets a check or a set of applause?
So that is something that in the future we could look at, and that was something that the committee did bring up, but it got shot down pretty quickly, to be quite honest with you. They felt that the behaviors of support learning were an area that teachers could make those comments, and also to have those conversations in a parent-teacher conference. They felt that would be a more appropriate place to have those kind of conversations.
In the meantime, though, it sort of leaves a parent wondering until the time happens. I mean, I just want you to look at the other side.
Sure, absolutely.
I don't agree with your committee on that point. On the TK report card, just help me understand. I'm not a teacher. Early number concepts, nose number, names, counts 1 to 1.
So when we're talking about early number concepts and we talk about counting 1 to 1, when a child is learning to count, they can count that 1, 2, 3, but when they get to 3, they need to understand that that is the total in that group. So the technical term is cardinality, but we kept that off the report card because it was a piece of language that maybe wasn't as well understood by all stakeholders.
Okay, so I think it would be helpful if you had a glossary for parents.
Absolutely, and I think that was what the committee's actually already started on that work, but that was something that they definitely wanted to make available to parents so that they could
even with little examples.
Absolutely,
and all of that, make it easy enough for a school board member to understand it. And you'll be in the right direction. Thank you very much. Good work. I support it.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Mrs. Alavi.
I guess I'm going to be the lone wolf here because I've been kind of harping at everybody for the last year about report cards. I think it's incorrect to assume that the equal people that are going to be receiving this are of equal value. This is the major communication piece from the school to the parent regarding their learning. And if you have to have a little dictionary along with it to describe what it is you're getting, I don't consider that very user-friendly. I've been kind of complaining for the last year that this is a parent tool and an opportunity for us to be user-friendly to parents. I agree it is very much for a teacher's benefit. This is not to a parent's benefit. And I think the parents are the major ones the teacher is trying to get this information to. Is the teacher really trying to get this information to another teacher? Is that really the most important thing? Or is it they're trying to send this home and give some awareness to the parent? You know how when you go to a doctor and the doctor's talking doctorese or a lawyer's talking lawyerese and you have no idea what they're saying and you're nodding because you're trying to follow that language? I'm sorry to say it's a little condescending on the part of the doctor or the lawyer to not use words that are comfortable for that person, to elevate their language to such a point that you do not understand what the doctor or the lawyer is trying to say. I think it's rude. So I'm going back to this saying that there are terms in here that are difficult for the average parent to read. Not only that, I gave it to my husband, and he couldn't figure it out, and I would say he's at least as educated as the average parent. So I'm just saying, I just can't approve it. One of the things I did complain about and they decided to keep was conventions, because even though you can read right to the side, uses correct grammar, if you use the word conventions and you look in the dictionary, if I'm a parent, I don't know what conventions are, I look to the dictionary and it does not have any kind of educational definition in the dictionary. So you go down, you're reading in their dictionary and you're saying, oh, it's a meeting or a formal assembly. Well, no, it can't be that. and you start going down the dictionary, and it still doesn't make sense because these are words that are used within your context, not into a parent's context. So I can't approve them because I just don't think they're parent-friendly.
Thank you, Mrs. Alvey. Mrs. Cloud?
Well, I shared some of your concerns. I noticed a lot, you did address some of them, and conventions was on the old report card. So I figured, yeah, I just figured by this time they probably have some awareness of what conventions are. But it is something to be considered as the language, and I'm still, the displaced digital citizenship was one of the ones that I brought up, and you did change some of the ones. We had cardinality and some of that, and I'm glad you changed that because most parents just wouldn't know what that was. In fact, most general public wouldn't know what that was. I still think digital citizenship is a little, is just, digital, you think of other, you don't think it should be clear. Technology is what you're talking about. So that still kind of concerns me. I'm okay with most of it. You did change, you made phonics and word recognition clearer. So you did take our concerns to heart, and I appreciate that. So I can live with the rest of it because those were the ones that really jumped out at me that parents really would have problems with. And I would say one of the reasons teachers don't write comments anymore is that you almost have to say something nice. Because if you say anything negative, it's on their record, and so it's better to talk about it in person. And remember, we do have parent-teacher conferences when the report cards are handed out, so you do have an opportunity to discuss then the grade and what it means. But to go back, and I guess this makes me old, but A, B, C, D, and F kind of helps parents. I mean, I know what we're doing here is fine-tuning it, and I get that. But most parents just want to know generally. They don't care about the nuances of, what was one I saw here? How about text types and, production, distribution, and research. Writes, revises, edits work appropriate to the task. Some of the things in here are not really that definitive for most parents. I will say that, and I agree with you. But with that said, I think you did a lot of hard work. It is better than it was, and I would move approval. And thank you for how organized it is. I appreciate that.
Mr. Lee?
I'll second that, but I do have a few questions, or a few comments. A lot of the comments that are being made, like Mrs. Cloud said, were addressed at the subcommittee, and I see a lot of the changes that were made, and I think we got to give parents a little bit more credit. Maybe the term convention or one of these other terms isn't widely used, but I think that the definition associated is pretty clear. So again, I am a parent. If I got this report card for my son, I said conventions. Oh, he got a check mark. What does that mean? Oh, correct grammar. Okay, he needs to work on his grammar, his punctuation, his capitalization. So I understand we're trying to group these things and find out some kind of a term. And as far as digital citizenship, I'll just mention that this has been mentioned twice. It's fairly widely used now. It's a new term. I understand that. Just like cloud computing, just like tablets are just new words that we're going to have to develop and put into our vocabulary. I think my generation is a widely used term. So I think as parents are going to be very receptive and understand what that means. And if they don't, they have the parent-teacher conference and they can say, hey, how can my son or daughter be a better digital citizen? What does that mean? And I think the teacher at that time can give some constructive feedback. So I appreciate the work and the time and receptive to the feedback that was given by parents and teachers and Mrs. Cloud and myself. So again, I second approval.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee. We'll go to Mr. Hunt again.
I think that this, earlier Mr. Lee was discussing with the interim superintendent about the clarity of the LCAP and the need for that to be, I think Mrs. Alvey makes a great point that, this is the most read document that parents our customers get. And I don't completely understand Mrs. Allaby's point that it could all be on one card. I think there does have to be some sort of backup and all. But to me, this is one of those items that, much like we talk about there, you know, and I'm all for split votes and debate and all that kind of good stuff. But this is one of those items that the board should feel really good about, should have a 5-0 on. And I don't think you're going to have it. So I'm just going to try something. I'm going to make a motion that we table it for 1 month for it to come back with some of the board's input and a little cleanup and see if it can be done better. If I don't get a second, you know what to do, Mrs. Locke Dawson. If I do, it's not debatable, and we go to a vote.
Well, I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So we have a substitute motion to the first motion. So let's vote on the substitute motion, please.
Well, before you do, can I have
Not
a clarification? It's not debate, it's a clarification.
Yes, what do you need?
Will it interfere with the time frame? Everything's on a time frame, so will a month make a difference?
So it possibly could interfere with the time frame because we do have to get all of this information to Technology Services, who then has to recode the entire program that our system is on. And I don't know the exact time frame, but I know at this point we are pushing that deadline as it is. So it could possibly impact that process.
Well, I'll say within a month. If you think you do it in the next 2 weeks and you can work with Mr. Fine and Mrs. Locke Dawson to get you on the agenda, then bully for you.
All right, then please vote. Okay, the item has been tabled. It will come back to us in a month. And let me clarify that has Communications seen this? Did it come to you yet? No. I know this has been a passion of Mrs. Allaby's, and we brought it up in Communications a couple times because it almost seems like there's a couple different documents that she's talking about something that is a parent communication going home. That's the primary means of a parent communicating. This is sort of serving dual purposes. This is record keeping for the teacher, record keeping for compliance, which is why I think you don't put comments on it, because I think you don't want things carrying forward. So it's almost like we're looking at perhaps two different documents, which maybe we need to, that's more work for the teacher, and I'm not in the business of making more work, but perhaps we need to look at a different instrument if we're trying to get some of that information across. And I will just clarify, as the mother of a elementary school student and high school student, not everybody gets a parent-teacher conference.
Conference.
You only get it if the kids it depends, I think, on the school and the teachers and the load, but you only get it if your child is at risk for something. So you may not have the opportunity other than...
I think everybody gets one.
No, they don't. They don't. You don't. They don't.
Because... Okay.
Okay. I didn't get one this year. So,
Mrs. Locke-Dawson, we went from 2 days of parent conference at elementary to one.
Yeah.
When we had the furlough days.
Mm-hmm.
And you should have gotten a conference this year, because when the furlough days were restored, we restored the conference days. In addition, a teacher should always be willing to meet with the parent, particularly about their report cards.
I've never had trouble with any of the teachers willing to meet with me. That's never been a problem. But there were a couple years when I didn't get any conferences.
Right, there were a couple of years, the furlough years, right. We went
so if they've been restored, that's great. I know, but and at the high school level, you don't get them. You don't get them.
Right, it's like,
and at middle school, you don't get them either.
Not on the calendar. I think there's a couple of middle schools now that are holding
Some
but it's not the calendar.
Yeah. So it's not like it's just an automatic thing that if it goes home. So at elementary, it should be. But so anyway, so I have a question really quickly though. So under displays digital citizenship, above it there's shows respect for school personnel and peers. So is that just citizenship?
That's real world citizenship.
Yeah,
That's
so-
face-to-face citizenship.
Do you see my point? We've got two different citizenships there, and we use one with a lot of words to explain it and the other one with a pithy jargon. So I think there needs to be some consistency on the use of jargon and when we do more explanatory. Do you see what I'm getting?
I do.
Yeah.
So if I may, not really.
Thank you, Ms. Hill.
Not
Yes.
really my realm, but
Well,
I kind of
go
feel
for
like I
it,
could help
please.
finish the process here with the report card. When we take a look at it, if you could, it doesn't have to be now necessarily, but if you could give us some guidance on how to make sure that we get your input and work with that with the teacher. These teachers have invested a lot of time, and I wouldn't want to just change what they said. However, we know, having conversations with them, they're willing to look at changes that need to be made. So,
Do you
Don't know
have a
exactly how to get
communications
the
meeting
input.
coming up?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a communications meeting coming up anytime?
No, but we can schedule one.
Would you be able to? Because I think that would be the place to do it. And I think, particularly because this is, not to put you on the spot, Mrs. Alvey, but you were
No,
leading the charge on it, so I would say
be
this.
happy to.
Okay.
And I might also suggest that I know you say that we've gone and run this past parents, but it might be kind of nice to just take this to an average group of parents and just say, what is hanging you up here? Because I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same things that hang us up. And that might give us some feedback.
I talked to Sandy Page. So we went over it, and she took it to her council lead group, council group. And then we did present it to the Title I parents group. I took it to DLAP and talked to parents, and their conversation was mostly around the 1, 2, 3, 4, more than any of the other topics. But we could, I don't know what parent meetings are scheduled, but we could talk with them more.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We have another couple comments. Mrs. Cloud?
I would just, just for clarification, it has been to the instruction subcommittee. It went through, now we're going to go through communications as well, which is okay. But, we have gotten this report card several times in the mail out when we've had opportunities to make changes. It's just
I've been trying.
Oh, it's just kind of at the end of the process to kind of then make some pretty significant changes when they're under a time frame is all I would say. And we're getting to the end of the school year, and I do thank you for your trouble. So I think we as a board need to take some responsibility of ownership of getting the materials out and making the changes that we had opportunities to change.
And I think, too, within communications, perhaps, too, having some sort of example or something, Mrs. Alaby, if you have something you've seen someplace else that you think is very nice, and I think it would be good. So you have some very definitive things to work on, because we do know you're under time frame, and I appreciate it. So.
Okay, so we'll be sure to meet with communications and then schedule a time with teacher, communicate with them somehow, some way, and then a parent group.
Just a little thing. Okay, Mr. Hunt has a comment.
I think the board is taking responsibility on this, and I think it's what we want, Ms. Hill, is that it's not so much inside baseball, that you do reach out to the parents so they can understand and they really grasp what the teacher's trying to get across. That should be a goal the teacher holds as highly as this board member does.
Right.
That the parent is engaged and understands what the challenges and opportunities are. Right. So, thank you for your work. Thanks for getting that logo right.
Well, and I would actually ask to, within communications and with you, to perhaps look at two different tools. Maybe if maybe to satisfy the two different needs, because this is not user friendly, but it does provide the teachers with what they need to comply and get their information down and track the students. But it isn't necessarily what a parent may be interested in knowing. So I'm not sure how to work that. Mrs. Alvey.
Yeah, I will attempt to do this in communications, but I really would suggest this is such a rare opportunity, 3 times a year. The parent is very, very interested in this piece of paper. You have a captive audience for a few minutes to communicate, and yet I'm not sure you're sending the right message, but maybe we need to add something on top of this. Maybe we need a sheet ahead of this. I don't want to undo all your work. I just want to make it clear for parents.
And Mrs. Alvey, I think that of the report card committee, the intent is the same. The execution might be a little bit different.
Yeah.
So.
It's okay. And Mr. Hunt, one last comment.
I know your time's pressed on this, Ms. Hill, but is there, does Wichita Falls have the report card to end all in between the peer groups that you belong to, the professional peer groups that you belong to? Is there, we can't be the first board just, talking about this, nor the last. Is there some outstanding examples out there that you could lead us
Well,
towards?
it might surprise you to know that Riverside Unified is one of the outstanding examples. At the beginning work of the report card committee, teachers looked at a lot of different examples. Some a lot shorter with just the subject, and some 3 or 4 pages long. So what you have before you is a compilation of the style, I would say, maybe not necessarily all the wording. Many of them took words directly from the Common Core standards, so cardinality is still there, or phonological awareness is still there, whereas ours is a mix of the two. So I'll take it as, I hope I have my baseball terms right, that we got a home run when we wanted a grand slam. Is that right?
You got inside
the
the park.
grand slam is better than a home run.
Inside the park triple.
Okay, there you go. Inside the park triple when we wanted a home run.
Maybe a second.
Yeah, so I think just one, to honor the teacher's work, and to continue to honor Mrs. Alavi's request if we get her information, and work with the teachers to do it, and run it by some parents again, and we'll work with technology services on the
One of our goals
deadline.
is to engage our parents.
Most definitely.
And so we don't want to confuse them. We want to engage them. We don't want to take them off either, but we want to really, the little bit of communication we're allowed to have with them, the time they have, this is such an important piece. So it isn't criticism, it's just critique.
I understand.
So thank you for your work.
Thank you, Mr. Dunlap. We appreciate it. And thank you to the instruction subcommittee, too, for listening and making recommendations and getting us to where we are. All right, item number H2. This is a discussion of the Mello-Roos Community Facilities Act. I think it says Dr. Lewis. Yes. Hello, Dr. Lewis. This
Hi,
is an
Mrs.
action item, is it not? Are we?
It's a first reading with an option of taking action. Mrs. Lock-Dawson, Mr. Fine, members of the board, this item that we bring before you today is requesting you to review and approve a revision to an existing policy dealing with Mello-Roos Community Facilities Act. This item was presented to the Operations Board Subcommittee in early April. They asked us to move it forward to you. We have had the policy reviewed by Kim Byram from Best and Krieger, and with that I'd like to review with you the policy adjustments. If we start on page 112, there's some language that really basically establishes a reserve fund for Community Facilities District issuance, so that if there is any delinquencies or defaults in paying taxes, it's covered by this 10% reserve fund. And that becomes really important when you have times of economic stress, when you have homes that are being left, and you have forfeitures and so forth. On the following page, on item 5 on appraisals, this is added language. It basically brings us within industry standard, just with advising that the goal is to stay within the guidelines of the Investment Advisory Commission appraisal standards for land secured financing. It does reserve the board's right to make some adjustments to that. The primary interest that we wanted to make some modifications to policy is on section 6 about priority access policy. Recognizing that Riverside Unified has many schools open for transfer, and the policy of choice that we provide parents, and also choice programs throughout our district, we wanted to ask for a policy that gives us some specific language that allows us to use our CFD funds outside the specific attendance area for where those community facilities districts are formed. So, for example, if students go to a specialized program in another school on a transfer, we want to be able to use the CFD funds to enhance that program and provide the facilities to support that program. So basically, it just provides us more flexibility in the use of those funds. That's pretty much it. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Mr. Hunt?
With that latter, thank you. That latter example, Dr. Lewis, be akin to like our STEM school.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's. Yeah. This was a good language that our council and staff was reticent to bring forward, and with our changing times, and I would move adoption of as presented for us.
And I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We've got a couple more comments in just a moment. Mr. Lee?
Quick question, follow up on what you were saying about following the student. So right now, with our Melrose bond money, the money has to stay within that district or that boundary of that school?
That's it's where the actual boundary of the CFD is. So you may have a development that spans more than one attendance area, and it does have elementary, middle, and high school. Obviously.
So now, if one of the students that lives within that district transfers to another school, those funds will follow that to that school site, or is it just flexibility for anything?
Throughout? Right.
Okay. It's across the district, right? So, okay, Mrs. Clem?
I just have a clarification question on 6 priority access policy. The black part stays there, the red part is just added,
That's correct.
Because students residing do have priority for attendance, the students residing in that area.
That's correct.
Yes. That's all.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. When your light flashes, please vote. Thank you. Good work, Dr. Lewis.
Thank you.
Our last item on our action calendar is the resolution of the board to establish measurement. Oh, wait, this is just our regular, right? No, this is a different one. Okay, sorry. Resolution of the Board of Education to establish measurement periods pursuant to the Affordable Care Act.
Well, there is a little-known act, a piece of legislation called the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, and it means that we need to establish a measurement period to determine our full-time employees. I've asked Kathy Everhart to come up and give a short explanation as to what this means for us. So, Kathy?
Good evening.
Good evening.
So as you may have heard, in the Affordable Care Act, there's 3 main components of the Affordable Care Act. We need to make health care accessible, which is what's addressing this measurement, the measurement period is addressing, and then also affordable, and then have minimal essential benefits. So the way to measure whether someone has the ability to have access to our benefits is to measure their hours. Anyone who we pay even $1 to, we have to measure the hours that they've worked. So in this first measurement period, preparing for 2015, we had the ability to have a shorter measurement period of 6 months. We'd still have to have accessibility to benefits for a whole year, 12 months, but we can measure for 6 months. Some are concerned that, what about those summer months? What we'll do is we'll take the average that someone's worked April, May, June, coming back into school, piece of August, September, and then to October 2nd, and then average that and put that into those months when they would be off in the summer, and that's what we're required to do for those that have that break time. We put it back to April 1st because anyone, again, that's off during that summer time period, they can have that average time if they've worked at least 2 months prior to that. That's those summer months. That's why we went back to April 1st. So that's what we're asking for, is for that 6-month time period. And then I think the resolution, the resolution also says that we would then continue from October 1st through September 30th in years going forward. A
Okay,
whole
so this
12-month
is sort of
measurement
like
period.
the grandfather 6 months here. Takes us up to October, and then we'll start anew in October and start measuring.
Right. It goes to October 2nd, which then gives us 90 days for our admin time period, is what they say. Then gives for us to notify everyone who has the ability to have those benefits. That would start January 1st, and then that's the stability period, is the January 1st through December 31st of 2015.
Okay, I see. All right. We have a couple questions. Mrs. Cloud.
Hi. So this is required by law, so one more regulation and whatever. But the good thing is you're going to know who gets benefits. So when will the employees know when they're eligible to sign up for health care for next year? And will it automatically transfer for those employees that are already insured? Will it just continue on? I mean, they don't have to go in and sign up for affordable care or anything. They're going to be carried with what we already have, correct?
Yes. Those that are already covered are going to continue to be covered. Those under our CBA, they'll continue to be covered. We have to measure them, though, because there's certain provisions that we have to make sure that we're in compliance with. Example, as far as this measurement period, we have to make sure that we are offering benefits to 95%, although we have a little bit of a delay, which I'll explain in a minute, 95% of what they define as a full-time employee, which is 30 hours a week or 130 hours a month. Doesn't matter if they're a permanent employee of ours. They could be a sub-employee. Mm-hmm. We have one provision for this next year where we only have to be offering benefits to 70% without receiving a penalty. But we want to make sure that we're getting set and in compliance, because there's reports that we'll be having to send to the IRS letting them know every single person who we are covering, their dependents, their social security numbers, everything to the IRS, report that, and then who's also been eligible. And we have to have that measurement period to know if we're in compliance.
So when will the employee know when?
That's our admin period. So we'll go to October 2nd in our measurement, and then after that we'll have a 90-day admin period to notify them, which our goal will be to notify them before open enrollment, so they would come in during open enrollment just like our other employees.
So they would have time to make decisions during open enrollment?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Hunt.
Director Everhart, you have usually on resolutions we have an idea of a fiscal impact. Do you have an idea of a fiscal impact of this?
That's still being discussed. Let me explain a couple things that will have a fiscal impact. Now, again, we have to offer benefits. Mm-hmm. It doesn't say we have to pay for them. Of course, that's going to affect another component of it, which is the affordability. So, which is a whole nother component. But let's talk about the part where the measurement period. Okay. If we measure our employees, and let's say we find out there's 3,600 employees that fall under their definition of an eligible employee, full-time.
3,600?
Let's say, I'm just giving you an estimate, 3,600, which we think is going to be fairly close, somewhere around there. So if we are off and don't fit within their 95%, then we will be penalized $2,000 per eligible employee, which would be to a tune of $7.2 million penalized. So we want to make sure our measurement's correct. We want to make sure that we're offering it to everyone who's eligible under their definition. Wow.
So we don't really have a fiscal impact on the measurement part then, other than if we don't do it, we will get penalized.
You want to say something? Mr. Fine has a comment.
That's why that precision is so important, and why we're doing it for an extended period of time, 6 months. And although we have a grace period next year to only have to reach the 70% threshold, the ultimate provisions in the Affordable Care Act is at 95, and we already know that 5% isn't enough wiggle room for us, because This gets really complex, but we eat up 4% of the 5% because we have both spouses working for the district. And we don't double cover. It would be a complete waste of their money, the employees' money, to double cover them. So we only have a 1% margin of error, which is why the precision of this becomes so critical, because Kathy needs to repeat that penalty. It is, if we blow that 5%, we get charged a $2,000 per eligible employee, not per employee that we missed, but per the 3,600 eligible.
What a government. That's good.
It's what they've nicknamed the sledgehammer penalty. It is a sledgehammer.
Somehow they have to pay for all of this, so the penalties are pretty significant.
So there is another penalty. You know, I talked about there's another component, and that's the affordability. So we need to make sure that an employee is not, let me go back, the employee, not the employee and the children, or the employee and the spouse. We need to make sure that the employee does not have to pay out more than 9.5% of their annual household income. How do we know their annual household income? We don't. So the safe harbor to use is their box 1 of their W-2. So, which of course takes away all their taxable income. So we have to look at what's our lowest paid employee that could possibly be eligible, and then what's 9.5% of that. Make sure that they're not paying more than 9.5%. Let's just say, for argument's sake, someone was offered benefits, but we didn't pay the benefits, or the hours went over and we didn't catch that they were under that definition of full-time employee. Then we would be penalized $3,000 per employee that paid more than they were supposed to, that went out to the marketplace, received a subsidy. So it's a much harder penalty to get, and we're only going to receive that penalty if the person went to the marketplace and received a subsidy, and their benefits were over the that would have cost them more than 9.5%.
In all seriousness, with this new, have we considered in our LCAP plans, Mr. Fine, about what it does to Ms. Everhart's office and making sure because, and this is no disrespect to Mrs. Everhart and her hard work, but a screw up sounds like it's going to be pretty expensive, and we don't have a lot of room for error.
So as part of this, it is not in the LCAP because it was something we had actually committed to quite a while ago. Because remember, the implementation of the law now has been delayed twice.
Right, good point.
And so we'd actually anticipated this measurement period was going to start last October. So we've had this discussion for some time. We are adding a staff member who will, in essence, be doubling the work of payroll. Because in today's payroll system, we do not enter every hour. We only enter the bottom total on the time card. The system that we have today across the county of Riverside and most counties in the state does not record every hour. So we are going to double entry everything into a side set of software, and we'll have to add a person to do that. And that's been planned in our budget planning for now an extended period of time. So it's not specifically called out in the LCAP, but we'll do that and see where we're at. We also, Riverside Unified's been budgeting for now about 5 years for a time and attendance system. Our share of the cost countywide, we're not the holdup. Some small districts are the holdup because they can't afford their share of approximately $10 million system. But we've actually had it budgeted for several years because we knew this was coming. We tried to get those limitations out of the way almost 5-6 years ago.
Very good.
It will still take 4 or 5 years to develop that system once all the districts across the county agree to it, which is the struggle. So that has also been in our budget and has been all along.
Very good.
To pay our portion of that, but it's so not a change in that itself.
Thank you. Mrs. Cloud?
I have a quick question because I think I have more questions as I'm thinking through this than you probably have answers. But I'll throw this out. What if I'm a part-time employee and I'm working 30 hours a week, and per contractual agreement, I'm paying so much for our insurance policy, which pretty much eats up all of my income. So who determines if that's affordable? And what if my husband is laid off, and so I'm working basically for benefits and it's taking all my paycheck? So how is that affordable? I mean, so what happens is that because we have contractual agreements to pay for our insurance.
They've defined affordable as no more than 9.5% of your annual household income.
So what if I'm paying more? Then what happens?
We would receive a penalty if that person then goes to the marketplace exchanges and receives a subsidy, which they might be able to receive a subsidy because of where they've set their limits for subsidy is anywhere from 133 to 400% of poverty level.
So we could get dinged if a person went out and found a cheaper insurance policy?
At this point, we're good. We do have a plan, one plan that is, I don't know the exact amount, it's $40 and some cents for our high deductible plan, which is still a better plan than what's offered on the exchanges.
So we next year will have several plans to choose from, high deductible, or will we not do what we're doing?
We have 5 now. We
Okay.
have
Right.
the
Okay.
EPO,
Yeah.
PPO,
Right.
Kaiser, and
Right.
then 2 high deductible plans.
So that'll probably stay about the same?
Well,
Renewal, you mean?
I think her question, Mrs. Cloud's question, Kathy, gets to that calculation. There are several variables in her question. One is husband loses their job midway through the year, which hasn't been a trigger for us in the past. Well, it's a life event. We would allow them to enroll or unenroll in our plan mid-year outside of open enrollment, but we wouldn't have adjusted our contribution. So remember, the penalty measurement's based on household income, not our employees' income. And so that's an unknown number to us. We have to put whole processes in place to verify household income. But the other element of it, it would be the single party cost, which today we don't offer. We only offer composite rates. So even if we stick to the 5 plans, which we would fully expect to do at a minimum, we do need to have a conversation, and Susan covered that in the reopeners with CSEA tonight, as did CSEA, knowing that this is an issue that we have to resolve, health and welfare benefits, but we may have to look at tiered rates because of the calculation. It's based on what we pay for the single, for just the employee, not the family, against the household income. So lots of variables here.
I get it, and I have so many questions, but I get the complexity, and it has the potential of being very difficult for some employees.
And very expensive.
Yes. So I would throw it back on them. They're not making it affordable. So anyway, this will, I'm sure, generate many conversations.
Mr. Hunt has a question.
I was making a motion to approve as presented.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution as presented.
Hope and change.
Motion carries. Thank you, ladies. Appreciate it. Okay. At the end of our meeting, a little bit early, sort of. Let's see.
Let's play 2.
So, coming to the end of our meeting or conclusion, we've got board member comments. I don't know, Mr. Hunt, how about you? Would you like to go first?
Jolly good.
Okay, jolly good.
Yeah. Glad to be back. We live in a great country. Did you know that in England, they charge you a tax per television in your house? I mean, all of us that have that extra television in the garage to watch the games, I tell you, this is a great country. And, wherever I went, I was a school board member, and I did talk to people, and people are interested all over this world about education. They're interested in about the opportunity for young people to find their way early on. Talked to a guy, a retired fireman named John, whose son, he was babysitting the house, he was at a pub, and he was at the house next door, and His son looked around for a long time until he finally worked in a bar. He was a nurse till somebody died on him. And somebody got him involved in HVAC. And he clicked. He saw the money in it. He realized. He went and took some classes. Owns his own business now. He's taken all 4 of his kids to see Matilda in London that night at the play, having a good life. Another gal ran a B&B, or both her parents were doctors. Her brother wasn't going to go that way, and he finally found out just through an apprenticeship being a joiner. Joiner, by the way, is a carpenter. So it's interesting, no matter where you were, people are still talking about why isn't education making those kind of opportunities. But it's good to be back. We live in a great country. We don't get it because we're so new. Of course, the Mission Inn is old. I went to church a couple Sundays ago at a church that was founded in 1353.
Wow.
And had a ghost. But they're still in a system that's kind of related to who their grandparents were. And we're doing as flawed as it can be, we're certainly doing a better thing here. A couple things I would ask this interim superintendent to look into. I'm not as xenophobic after that speech just about being overseas, but I do want to know what reason and academic benefits, and whether it's just exchanges, that's fine, that we have visits and cooperations with international students who just sort of drop in on us. Assistant Superintendent Paredes had a report this week about that some Chinese kids visiting a couple of our schools. As I've expressed to this board before and to this community, I'm concerned about the Chinese academic chop shops that simply trying to impress parents have these trips that these wealthy Chinese parents and who are just desperately looking for something edge for their kids. I want to be sure that we're not supporting those. If we're getting something out of this, if there's academic reasons, if there's reasons for our online Mr. Fine to be expanded, fine. But I think the board needs, if maybe small p policy on what, and again, we only have, what is it, Tim, 132 days, 182 days to get across the message. I don't want to waste any of that time. I want to be sure that your teachers, though they're being accommodating, aren't just hosting some international students for the sake of singing some songs and hosting international students. I want to make sure that our children are getting something out of it, and our district is too. I also would like I was flabbergasted. For us that have been on the board for more than one term, we know that the debates that this board has had and some of the angst this board has had and tried to do things right when it comes to scoreboards. The Miss Alden scoreboard at Poly, Coach Hammersmith, the whole really tear asunder kind of debate we had over the North Stadium, and to come back and find out that there has been a scoreboard with a sponsor put up at King High School absolutely infuriates me. And earlier on I was talking about and alluded to that that Mr. Fine is presenting to us, the staff is doing, is based largely upon trust. Because as Mrs. Cloud pointed out, they are the professionals. Under shared governance, that we have a professional staff headed by one that is an appointee of an elected board, and there has to be a great amount of trust. If in the little things the trust gets betrayed, I have to tell you that it bothers the 5 of us up here. How can a scoreboard go up at King with Tilden Cole's name on it, Dr. Lewis, that we don't know about, that wasn't talked about to my committee, that I never heard a thing about it until I get a note from Kathy Alvey that, oh, by the way, guess what? I don't understand that at all. And also I'd like the superintendent to report the last meeting we had, we did, and I'm glad we approved, and I'm still for it, but I take responsibility as chairman of that committee, about $1.5 million, a little more, I guess, in security measures. Most of it, as you know, is fencing, and with some of that fencing going right at the different sites, there comes into play, as explained to us, grade elevation, so cement has to be run back and in. We have a six-figure number, which I didn't realize until afterwards, is included in that for project management. We're hiring someone to oversee these. It has been my understanding in our staff under Measure B, we have someone on staff paid for that oversees these type of projects. Why are we adding someone else for these minuscule projects? Why is this current staff person? And the answer I got from the, I did not go through the proper process. I should have gone to Mr. Fine instead of to the assistant superintendent over this. So, but I'd like Mr. Fine then to answer the question. Why is our regular person who is paid for this, my understanding of this board has been paid under Measure B, who before him it was Orrin Williams and Bart, whatever his name was, one of them still RCC. Why is this person not overseeing this? Why are we spending $150,000-ish to hire someone to oversee these projects? And this is a proper question for the board to ask. That's our job, to be the check and balance. And but I have to tell you, this scoreboard thing just bugs the heck out of me, that if there's been anything that's been over-debated, and I thought that we would have proper, that we really kind of went into great detail about, and then it is not just scoreboards, but donations of items that have been named. And then to have that item at King High School be completely ignored, this board to be completely ignored, Mr. Fine, that should not happen. And I'm disappointed, and I ask the President, I'm asking the President to ask you to put forth an explanation to the board, and if necessary, I'll leave it to Mrs. Locke Dawson to be discussed in a closed session because it is a personnel matter.
I will take it up. I'll talk with Mr. Fine about it. Thank you, Mr. Hunt. And welcome back.
Jolly good.
Mrs. Cloud, would you like to chime in?
Well, I would say we do have a process where we can always ask from the mail-outs the questions that satisfy our curiosity. And then if that doesn't satisfy our curiosity, then we can come to a full board meeting. But I feel uncomfortable when staff is caught unprepared to answer some of the questions that come from the board and they don't have an opportunity to answer them. So with that said, I will go and say I was at a delegate assembly meeting, and they've become very interesting. And I will say that our fall joint meeting, as we will attend, is October 27th. They will be offering Masters in Governance sessions in the future, where we as a board can go, or however we see fit. There's workshops that Riverside County School Boards Association have adopted, and I will ask Cheryl to make a copy of the calendar. You probably got it in the, we get so much mail, and I don't even look at it all myself, but I just think this would be helpful for you to know, so I'll ask her to copy it and give it back to you. So that was April 30th. It was the social media do's and don'ts. And although a lot of it was routine, there were some tidbits that I got. And one of the things that I talked to Mrs. Alavey about was having a policy on social media that's much more in-depth and captures the issues of the day. In fact, that's probably a policy that would almost have to change every year. But I asked for if CSBA has a policy, and we could get a copy and look at it and come bring it before the communications subcommittee. And I also have a copy of Suzanne Mraz's presentation, and I will forward it to Cheryl and ask her to copy it for you. So in the next mail out, maybe you can kind of flip through it just so you see. She's the executive director for communications at CSBA. It was interesting. There will be more coming up over the summer and in the fall. So, and then another thing that came up that is coming up, and I will give you a copy of this as well, is the Leadership for Educational Justice, the 10th Annual Summer Institute, talking about Common Core. The keynote presenter is Douglas Fisher. It's for staff, school board members, superintendents, whatever. And so if anybody would be interested in that, they can take action. Then, it's been such a busy time of year. Mrs. Alavey and I attended the Elk Student Achievement Awards, and it was a full house. It was probably not the most smoothly run, but it had a lot of exuberance. So, that's always exciting. And they honored some students, and it was just great to see. We had the employee recognition, and I think it's very good. And thank you, Mrs. Mills, for bringing forth the certificated retirees and their time of service. And I was at Lincoln, and of all times, they had a fire drill. And there we were kind of standing on the outskirts of Lincoln. But it's always a pleasure to go over there. I will say it's one of the cleanest campuses around, and everybody is so respectful. And somebody was graduating while I was there. He came in to give Mr. Ross his paperwork, and everybody was clapping and celebrating. So it's been a good couple weeks, and I can't believe we're at the end of the year. It's just like
crazy.
Too fast. It's crazy. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cloud. Mr. Lee, do you have anything you'd like to?
Just quick. I wasn't going to say anything, but in light of kind of how the conversation went with the report card committee, I haven't been on the board too long, and this issue has come up where there's been some communication gaps or some disagreement about certain items that get brought forth to the subcommittee that gets approved and then gets pushed on. And I have no problem with that. I think that's good that we have debate up here, especially something as important as report cards. But I'm just wondering if we should revisit the whole structure of subcommittees, because if something is important as report card committees and the history that Mrs. Alley has had in report card committees, it would make sense to have her as kind of clued in on the beginning of the process, so a lot of these kinks can get worked out before, so we don't have an issue with time constraints. And this is just the latest example since I've been on the board. So I know we talked about that briefly at our weekend retreat that we did. I'm just wondering if that's, I like it in practice because it allows us to kind of talk about things, and we all only have so much time, so if we can split up some of those duties, I think that's great. But I'm wondering if some of these big ticket items, and I don't know how we decide what's big ticket and what's not, somehow get brought through a workshop or just get put on the board agenda and we put less items that day. But I hate to see these items get delayed just because people feel like they weren't able to provide input. So it's something to think about.
I'm going to make a committee to study the committee structure. Just kidding. It's getting kind of late. Okay. Thank you. I know. And then there'll be a couple subcommittees and task forces. All right, Mrs. Alley. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Well, point well taken.
Yeah, Mr. Lee, I couldn't agree more. The committee structure needs some work. It really does.
Well, I will work on that. If you all would like me to, I'll come up with something and maybe present it.
It's just that we're tackling very meaty questions. Certainly, I know Mr. Hunt has not always liked some of the decisions that the Communications Committee has made, and sometimes maybe I feel that we should be coming to a better conclusion. Anyway, also agree with Mr. Hunt. I'm not happy about my 2 years of working on the naming committee to have a surprise name pop up at King High School. I sort of feel like those 2 years I spent on that policy were kind of wasted. There are a couple of things. First of all, for Mrs. Cloud, yes, we went to the Elks, and I'm requesting that we write a nice thank you note to Mr. Berkeley Caulfield, who is the chairman of the Elks Youth Awards Committee, and I have all the information to give to Cheryl, and I hope we can write a thank you note because it was very sweet. And finally, I'm also asking Cheryl if she'll get copies out to you of an article that I took out of one of our publications called "Win Your Next Bond Issue," and it has to do with general obligation bonds. And something that is very clear when you read this article is that if you have a track record of going into the community and speaking to the community and listening to the community, it is so much easier to get a general obligation bond passed. Therefore, I think we have a very rare opportunity right now, having done this LCAP process, going into the community as we have, to build upon it and actually get this started. So I'll get this out for you, for all of you to read.
Thank you, Mrs. Alvey. I would like to see that. Mr. Fine, do you have anything else that you would like to? Okay. I just wanted to just let you know how this is an announcement of any kind. It's just sort of an observation, but how Common Core is working in the classroom right now, based on my N of 3, my kids. But so this is just an example. So Martha Rose, my 5th grader, was struggling with some things and wasn't having a good time. And one of the things that her teacher let her do was a science experiment on a gummy bear, and she put the gummy bear in some water, and that gummy bear expanded, and then it led to some other areas of inquiry where then they put the gummy bear in a closet in the dark, and different types of mold grew on the gummy bear in the closet that grew outside. And then Martha Rose did a PowerPoint that she told the class about, and she even talked about the Fibonacci sequence and the golden mean, and there was a whole bunch of stuff that got incorporated into it, and she learned how to embed. She put a video in there about mold and the types of mold that grow, and anyway, and it was very structured, and it had a lot of pieces of her curriculum and her standards, and it was all incorporated into this one little project, and it was really based on her own inquiry and her own interest, and it got her so excited and so interested to be there. So I do think we're seeing some good things come out of this. So I just I know it's a story about my own kid, but I thought maybe I'd like to share it because I think I see other things going on in high school too with my other girls. So it is working, and I appreciate that. But that is all I have because it is such a crazy busy time of year, and we are invited to so many things. So the only thing I can do is give a broad-based apology to anybody that I haven't gotten back to on an email or invitations that I haven't been able to answer. I just want to put out that we are inundated with things right now, and they're all wonderful. So, Mrs. Cloud, yes.
Can I just add, for those of you who are inviting me to things next week, I'll be in Buffalo. So I've had to decline a lot of invitations, and I just wanted you to know why. I'm not dissing anybody. I'm gone. So thank you.
Dissing. That's a term. All right, so wait, Mr. Only if you bring some Pim's cups. That's what I would like. So, all right, so we are adjourned. Our next meeting is on the 19th, I believe. Is that right? Oh, well, tomorrow evening, too. So, yeah, we do. May 19th, 4:30. Thank you.